Bonk. Have you ever loved someone who also happens to be the reason you feel like you're losing your mind? I'm talking about the kind of woman who completely wears you out during an argument, but if she stays silent for too long, you're the one who ends up reaching out to pull her back in. Not because you need to win, but because you can't stand the thought of not understanding each other anymore. I call her my favorite headache, the kind of chaos you don't want to fix. A friend of mine once said she drives me absolutely insane, but she's also the reason I picked up my guitar again after 5 years of not playing a single note. Ever met someone like that? Someone who says one line and suddenly you're thrown off. But weirdly enough, you like the way they throw you off. She's not easy. She's not the go with the flow type. She challenges you with her eyes, provokes you with questions you're not sure are jokes or dead serious. Like the time she looked at me and said, "Do you always have to plan everything? When are you going to let yourself live a little?" I laughed at the time, but that night I couldn't sleep, not because I was mad, but because I didn't have an answer. In Stoic philosophy, we're taught to stay calm no matter what happens. But the truth is, sometimes the people who disrupt your calm just a little are the same ones who wake up something deeply alive in you. She doesn't bring you peace. She brings you life. I once told a woman like that, "You're the biggest headache I've ever had." She raised an eyebrow, smiled, and said, "And yet you're still here. So tell me who's the real problem?" And I laughed, because she was right. I didn't want to leave, even though she was contradiction. She was chaos, she was challenge. But she was also the catalyst that made me more honest with myself, more courageous, more kind, not just to her, but to who I was becoming. My favorite headache isn't some soft, simple love. It's a bond between two people who are deep enough to understand real connection doesn't always mean agreeing on everything. Sometimes it just means choosing to stay, especially when you don't. A listener once wrote to me, "She never tried to change me. She didn't even try to fully understand me. But when life felt too loud, just sitting beside her made me feel enough." Are you thinking of someone like that? Someone who doesn't make life easier, but makes it impossible to forget. In today's world where comfort and convenience are treated like gold, people walk away the moment something feels off. But sometimes the thing that feels off is exactly what you need to shake you out of your bubble, to challenge who you think you are, to learn how to love without trying to control. She doesn't want you to change for her. She wants you to change if it's something you want for yourself. I want you to picture this. You've had a long, exhausting day. Everything feels like too much. You just want the world to stop spinning. And then she sends one message I've been thinking about, what we talked about earlier. No blame, no drama, just that. And somehow it's enough. Enough to make you want to go back, to pick the conversation back up. Not to argue, but to understand, and that is what makes her different. She doesn't need to always be right, but she's always real. She's not here to make you feel comfortable. She's here to make you feel alive. Maybe you're with someone like that right now. Or maybe you walked away from someone like that thinking she was just too difficult. If so, you might have been wrong. She wasn't causing chaos. She was waking you up. And if this video made you think of someone, don't keep that to yourself. You don't need to be poetic. You don't need to be perfect. You just need to be honest. Yeah, you drive me crazy, but I wouldn't want anyone else to do it but you. I'll see you in the next episode where we'll keep exploring the women who leave an imprint, the muse, the wild card, the shadow, the north. Because each kind of woman leaves behind something in you, something you can't explain with logic. You just feel it. Let me paint you a picture. You're sitting in a quiet cafe. Everything's fine in that steady, predictable kind of way. You know what you'll order. You know you'll go home tonight, turn on the TV, maybe finish up some work. And then she walks in. No loud entrance, no dramatic makeup, but somehow the room shifts, the air shifts, and so do you. She's not easy to love. She questions things. She challenges you. Sometimes she drives you out of your mind. Are you sure you're actually living your life, or are you just following a script someone handed you? You call that honesty, but maybe it's just another mask. Questions like that, not comfortable, but you can't stop thinking about them on the drive home. And the weird thing is, you don't resent her for it. You're grateful. Have you ever met someone like that? Someone who doesn't let you off easy, but never intends to hurt you either. I call her my favorite headache, the one pain you never want to cure. A listener once shared with me, she always made me feel like I was wrong, but not in a condescending way, in a way that made me realize I could be better. He told me about one time they argued, no shouting, no doors slamming, just a deep, uncomfortable conversation that left him asking himself, am I really living by my values? And that night, instead of avoiding the discomfort, he pulled out an old notebook and started writing. Writing about what he used to believe, and where along the way he left parts of himself behind. She didn't try to fix him, she just asked the right question at exactly the right moment. In Stoicism, we talk a lot about emotional control, about not letting external things shake your inner peace. But here's the twist, some people don't come into your life to throw you off balance. They show up to remind you there's a part of you that's been asleep for way too long. That's what my favorite headache does. She doesn't make you happy in a soft, sweet, comfortable way. She makes you ache, but in a way that wakes you up. The kind of ache you're afraid to lose. Because without it, you're scared you'll go numb again. I remember once I was in a big chapter of my life. Career booming, goals lined up. Everything looked right on the outside. And then she asked me, are you living? Or just checking things off a list? I got defensive. I'm building something that lasts, I told her. She didn't argue, she just looked at me for a long time and then softly said, the thing that lasts the most is you if you're still real. I didn't say much the rest of that night, but you know what? I've never felt so completely seen and still not abandoned. Are you thinking of someone like that right now? Someone who makes you feel like you're always in a mental chess match, but in reality, you're just facing parts of yourself you'd rather ignore. Someone who pushes you to rise up, not to impress her, but to deserve the space she's holding for you. If so, don't let that slip away. Not everyone will challenge you like that. Not everyone will stay when they see your rough edges. And not everyone will love you in a way that makes you question and grow. But she might. And maybe that's not a headache at all. Maybe that's the beginning of you becoming whole.
Fifth one.
Some women, they're not here for you to hold on to. They're here so you can see yourself more clearly. And when you look deep enough, you'll realize something kind of magical. She's not your headache. She's the wake-up call in a world that's gotten way too quiet with comfortable little lies. You know something, I'm not saying this to send you on a quest to find a woman like that. I'm saying it so you don't accidentally miss her if she's already there. My favorite headache doesn't show up often, and she's definitely not easy to keep. But if you've got the guts to face her, she'll be the one who makes you grow. Not by asking you to be someone else, but by making you feel like your half version of yourself just isn't good enough anymore. If someone came to mind while I was saying that, drop something in the comments. You don't have to share everything, just be real. And if you want to keep exploring feelings like this, where Stoicism isn't just about logic, but about using logic as a light to walk through the emotional maze of human relationships, hit that follow button. I'll be here waiting for you in the next story. Let me ask you something. Have you ever met someone who made you want to become a better version of yourself without ever saying it out loud? She didn't say you should try harder. She didn't give advice or set rules. She just showed up. I call that kind of woman the muse. And no, I don't mean some dreamy movie character in a flowing white dress twirling in a field with a book in her hand. The real muse doesn't need props. She doesn't ask to be the center of your life. She just walks into it and somehow changes the way you see the world. A listener once wrote me this, I'm a writer. I've written hundreds of articles, but I didn't write anything true until I fell in love with her. Not for a deadline, not for money, just to remember what it felt like to sit next to her. You get that. Some people don't need to inspire. Their very existence is inspiration. I remember one night I was trying to write. My head was drained, no ideas, nothing flowed. She didn't say much, just sat beside me. Then after a while, she gently placed her hand on my shoulder and whispered, "You're trying to force the words out, but words only come when you finally start listening to yourself." I didn't write anything that night, but the next day, I started again. Not because of a deadline, but because I missed that feeling. The feeling of her believing I had something meaningful to say. Have you ever felt that, like someone made you better, not because they asked you to be, but because you wanted to live up to the beauty they saw in you? The muse doesn't say you're amazing. She makes you see the amazing in yourself and then leaves you to go find it. Here's the wild part. The muse doesn't need to take over your story. She doesn't hold the pen. She doesn't rewrite your script. She just makes you want to write it better. And that's why she stays in your memory long after she's gone. I once knew someone like that. From the outside, she wasn't extraordinary, not someone people turn their heads for on the street. But one day when I told her I felt lost, she asked me, "Are you living your truth? Or just living in a way that makes others think you're okay?" And man, that question hit me hard. Not because it was some deep philosophical quote, but because I'd never actually stopped to ask myself that. See, Stoicism teaches us how to return to reason, but not so we become cold or robotic. We return to reason so we can understand our emotions without being ruled by them. And a muse, she touches those emotions, but then gently guides you back to your center. Are you thinking of someone right now? Someone who made you see the rain differently. Someone who turned silence into something beautiful, not scary. Someone you're not even sure you loved, but if you lost her, you'd feel like you left something real behind inside yourself. If so, then you've met a muse. And you know what's scarier than losing her? It's never telling her, "Hey, you made me feel more alive." So say it while you still can. You don't have to be poetic. You don't have to write a sonnet. Just be honest. Because a muse, she doesn't wait around. She shows up, brings light, and quietly walks away, leaving behind only one thing: a better version of you. And if you've ever met a muse, share that story in the comments. It doesn't have to be polished. It doesn't need to make sense. Just one line, so you don't forget what she made you feel. I want you to picture this. You're going through a season in life where everything on the outside seems fine. Work's good, your relationships are functioning, your schedule is full, but deep down there's this strange emptiness, something missing you can't quite name. You're not sad, you're not happy either. You just feel like you're outside of yourself. And then someone shows up. Not with a spotlight, not with noise, not to rescue you, just someone who sits beside you in silence. I call her shadow, not in the negative sense, but like a gentle shadow, a quiet space where you don't have to pretend, where you don't have to perform, where you can just be. I had someone like that once. One night I shared an old story with her about my father, someone I used to resent and also love. I expected her to ask, "Why haven't you forgiven him yet?" Or maybe say, "I understand." But she didn't. She just looked at me and said quietly, "Some things don't need to be solved. They just need someone to know they existed." And in that moment, I felt seen, completely, without judgment. Shadow doesn't try to cheer you up. She makes you feel real. In Stoic philosophy, we often talk about the light, reason, wisdom doing what's right. But Marcus Aurelius once wrote, "Darkness is also part of nature. Don't be afraid of it." And I believe sometimes a woman doesn't show up to brighten you. She shows up to sit in the dark with you and not leave. One of my listeners once shared this with me. She didn't try to heal me. She just made me feel like I wasn't someone to be abandoned, even when I was falling apart. Shadow doesn't fix you. She doesn't offer advice or solutions. She just stays like a soft blanket over the wounds you've hidden from the world. Have you ever met someone like that? Not someone who makes you laugh all day, but the one you think of first when you're not sure how much longer you can keep holding it together. If so, you're thinking of a shadow. And you know what? In a world full of loud voices, big opinions, and constant self-promotion, a woman quiet enough to let you fall apart without shame is the rarest kind of presence. Shadow doesn't need a spotlight. She's the cool shade after a long, hot day. She's the place where your heart can rest before it's ready to beat again. And if you're lucky enough to be with someone like that, don't stay silent too long. Whisper to her, "Nothing fancy, nothing perfect. I don't need you to make me shine. I need you to remind me that darkness inside me isn't as scary as I thought." I know this isn't the kind of love you shout about from rooftops. It's not flashy. It's not cinematic. But that's exactly why it's real. Shadow doesn't stir up your heart with drama. She holds the parts you haven't dared to face. And if you've ever had someone like that in your life, don't forget her, Because gentleness in the dark, that's a kind of strength only a few know how to give. Have you ever had a shadow? If you have, I invite you to share that story below. It doesn't have to be beautiful. It doesn't have to make sense. Just make it true. Because I believe, we don't only remember the ones who made us laugh, we remember even more. The ones who sat beside us when we didn't know how to ask for help. If something in this video made you pause, made you think of someone or a part of yourself you've kept hidden, hit that follow button. We're going to keep walking this path slowly, deeply with presence. And in the next part of this series, we'll meet a woman that I believe everyone should encounter at least once in their lifetime. North, the woman who helps you remember who you are. Do you want me to tell you about her? Because maybe you've had that moment too. You have the job, the relationships, the goals, but somewhere along the way, you look up and realize I've drifted so far from myself, I'm not even sure when it happened. That was me, until I met her. I call her North, not because she rescued me, not because she lit up the whole room, but because she stood still quietly, consistently, so I'd still know where my compass pointed. Wicker Man. Do you have a North in your life? Someone you don't see often, but you always keep a quiet space for them in your heart, like how a compass always holds space for true north. If you do, don't take that lightly. Because when life's map changes, when everything feels like a mess, when all paths seem to disappear, it's that steady presence of a north that keeps you from getting completely lost. Now, I'm not telling you this story so you'll go out and find someone like that. I'm telling it so you might realize maybe that person is already beside you. You just haven't called them by that name yet. And if you've ever had someone like that, don't wait until it's too late to say, you don't need to lead me anywhere. Just stay where you are so I'll always know my way back. In the next video, I'm going to tell you about a very different kind of woman. She doesn't bring direction. She doesn't bring quiet. She brings chaos, but the sweet kind. Wild card, the one you can't predict, can't hold on to, but also can't forget. Want me to keep going? If yes, leave a comment below. Doesn't have to be deep, doesn't need to make perfect sense. Just let it be real. Because I believe someone who helps you remember who you are is someone worth remembering. Have you ever met someone who made you question everything you thought you knew about yourself? You used to feel so sure. You had a plan, a map for your life. And then she walked in, and suddenly everything flipped upside down. I call her wild card. She doesn't play by rules, doesn't follow the usual script. She doesn't arrive at the right time, but somehow she always shows up as the right person. One of my listeners once told me I'm logical. I've lived my whole life by structure, routine, safety. And then she came in like a walking question mark. And after that, I stopped seeing life as a formula. Wildcard is the kind of woman who makes you feel alive. She might frustrate you because you can't control her. She might confuse you because she's nothing like the ideal you've built in your head. But here's the truth, you don't want to control her. You just want to be close enough to see how she changes your world. I remember one night I asked her, "Why do you never stick to a plan?" She shrugged and smiled. Because plans are for safe things to happen, and I'm here to let the surprises in. Have you ever met someone like that? Someone who doesn't make you feel safe, but makes you feel real. Someone who doesn't bring stability, but brings out a more colorful version of you. Wildcard isn't your anchor. She's the wind that tears down the old fences you built around your life. She's not the kind of woman you choose when you're picking someone stable to settle down with. But she's the one you'll remember for the rest of your life because she showed you a whole different way to live. In Stoicism, we talk a lot about calm control, inner stillness. But here's something Stoics also understand. Self-control isn't about controlling everything. It's about knowing what's worth letting go. And wildcard is the ultimate test of that. You can't keep her with a promise. You can't hold her out of fear of losing her. The only thing you can do is be fully present, moment to moment, and learn to love something that never fits into the plan. Another listener once told me, she wasn't like anyone else, and I wasn't like myself when I was with her. But the scary part was, I liked who I was. Wilder, braver, unfiltered. Wildcard doesn't show up to settle you down. She shows up to remind you sometimes living doesn't need to make sense. And even if she leaves behind something important, That feeling of wanting to live fully, not to control, but to feel. Are you thinking of someone like that? Someone you can't explain why you were drawn to, but who made you feel scared, curious, and grateful all at once? Or maybe you've met a wild card. And if she's still in your life, don't try to make her safe. Let her be who she is. Because some of the most beautiful things only bloom when we stop trying to force them. In the next part, I'll share with you the final type of woman in this series. She's not the one who takes your breath away, not the one who makes your heart race. She's the one who lets your heart rest. A quiet peace that not many people are lucky enough to experience. Want me to continue? If so, drop your thoughts below. Because real stories always start from a feeling you can't explain but never quite forget. She doesn't need to rescue you. She just needs to stay so you have a place to fall apart. Are you thinking of someone right now? Someone who's not flashy, not the kind that makes you smile all day, but the first person that comes to mind when you just need silence. If so, you've probably met a shadow. And if she's still in your life, don't take her quiet presence for granted. Because here's the thing, gentleness in the dark, that's a kind of strength, a kind of love that doesn't need noise or proof. One time I told her, I don't need you to make me brighter. I need you to show me that my darkness isn't as scary as I thought. She just smiled, didn't say a word. But from that moment on, I stopped feeling alone. Shadow doesn't need praise. She doesn't need you to say thank you. But if you've ever had someone like that in your life, someone who never asked where it hurt, just sat beside you and held the part you've been hiding from the whole world, cherish her. Because in the final part of this story, we're going to meet a different kind of woman, not the one who walks with you, not the one who stirs your soul. She's the one who keeps you on course, like north on a compass, a quiet kind of strength that most people overlook, but can't live without. Can you guess who she is? But we want you to picture this. You're the middle of a dense, unfamiliar forest, no map, no GPS, no signal. The sun's setting and panic starts to set in. At that moment, you don't need someone yelling, go this way. You just need a direction. One fixed point that hasn't moved, so you can recalibrate everything. Life is like that too. There are women who won't lead you, won't chase after you, won't drag you along. They just stand still, but in their stillness, you find your bearings again. I call her North, the emotional compass. She's not like trouble setting your heart on fire. Not like muse melting you with inspiration. Not like shadow quietly holding your broken pieces. She does one thing. She keeps you steady. I remember once I was lost emotionally, mentally. A project had failed. My confidence was shot. I doubted everything. I couldn't see a way out. I didn't call her for advice. I just wanted to hear a voice that didn't judge. She didn't say much, just one question. When was the last time you felt like you were going in the right direction? I couldn't answer, not right away, but I carried that question with me for months. And every time I felt lost, I went back to that moment. That's who North is. She doesn't guide you. She never leaves her place. She's not there to fix your chaos. She's just there. Still, steady, unshaken. So you remember you've been strong before, and you can be strong again. One of my listeners once wrote, she's not someone I think about every day, but every time I want to give up, she's the first face I see in my mind. Have you ever known someone like that? Someone who doesn't control you, doesn't try to prove anything, but through their quiet consistency, you adjust yourself. In Stoicism, we learn how to master our emotions, to be independent of circumstances. But here's something not everyone talks about. Anyone who helps you return to your reason deserves the respect you'd give a philosopher, and that's North. She doesn't need your gratitude. She doesn't need loud declarations of love. But I truly believe if you lose a North, you lose more than just a woman. You lose an anchor, a landmark, a piece of your own internal compass. So if you have someone like that in your life, someone who doesn't flinch when you fall apart, who doesn't walk away when you're lost, who doesn't judge when you're weak, hold on to her. Don't wait until your world's spinning out of control to realize you once had a North and you weren't wise enough to keep her close. And you know what else? All the names I've shared in this video series: Trouble, Muse, my favorite headache, Shadow, North. They're not just nicknames, they're emotional markers. Ways you remember someone, not through logic, but through those moments that hit you right in the heart. No one enters your life by accident. Some come to shake you up. Some come to light you up. Some come to help you find your way back. And if you've ever met one of these women, don't wait until it's too late to say how you feel. You don't need to be a poet to say thank you for helping me feel more alive. You just need to be honest with the right person at the right time. If anything I've said made you think of someone or even made you reflect on yourself, leave a thought in the comments. And if you want to go deeper with me into this journey of psychology connection and the emotional presence we all crave, go ahead and hit follow. Because I truly believe, in a world moving too fast, what we're all longing for again are the things that move slowly, but are real. Thank you for staying till the very end. And I'll see you in the next story where the things we can't put into words still find their way to the heart. You know, everything we've just explored, from my favorite headache to Muse Shadow, Trouble in North, they're not just types of women, they're emotional states. Ways someone can touch you, not with their hands, but simply by being there. I used to think only long-term relationships leave a lasting impact. But after years of listening, observing, and living, I've realized one true moment can sometimes mean more than a decade of drifting. Because not everyone makes you want to rewrite a chapter of your life. Not everyone forces you to face your most honest self and not run from it. One listener once messaged me and said I used to call her by a nickname no one else understood. And maybe that's why I can't stop remembering her. I get it. Because sometimes when the name fits the moment and the person, it doesn't just help you remember them, it reminds you of the version of yourself that existed when you were with them. So if you have someone special in your life, maybe a muse who makes you want to pick up the guitar again, or a shadow who helps you sit with your pain without fixing it, or a trouble who makes you realize your heart still knows how to beat fast, give her a nickname. It doesn't have to be fancy, doesn't have to sound poetic. It just has to be real. And if you've ever loved someone like that, someone you'll never forget, not because of what they did, but because of how they made you feel, write it down in the comments. It doesn't need to be perfect or logical. It just needs to be felt. Because maybe, just maybe, your story will help someone else remember a part of themselves they'd lost. And if you want to keep going with me on this journey through emotion psychology and living slowly in a world that won't stop spinning, hit subscribe. Turn on the bell so we can meet again in the next video. I believe this real emotion never goes out of style. It just needs to be told the right way to the right people at the right time. Thank you for being here truly. I'll see you in the next story where things the mind can't name can still be called home by the heart. Let me leave you with this. I want you to picture something. You're sitting in your favorite cafe. The late afternoon light spills through the window. An old melody plays in the background, and suddenly you remember her. Not because of the song, not because of a specific memory, but because of one word, a nickname you once gave her. Just a name, but inside it, an entire chapter of your life. A chapter you can't fully explain to anyone, but when you hear that name, your heart knows. That's the power of a name said at the right time. Not baby or babe like everyone else says, but something strange, something only the two of you ever understood. Like Wildcard, because she always kept you guessing, and you loved it. Time. Anchor, because just her presence makes you feel like you're not drifting anymore. Favorite Headache, because even when it's exhausting, you still want her in your life. A listener once shared with me, I used to call her North, because in the middle of all the chaos, the moment she showed up, I just knew I wasn't lost anymore. That's not some cheesy romantic line. That's emotional navigation. It's how we find our way back to ourselves through the presence of one person. Have you ever had a moment like that? Where you sit still, look back at your life and realize that a woman once showed up in it, not just with beauty, but with a quiet, lasting impact that changed you. Maybe you're not with her anymore. Maybe life has moved on. But her name, or more specifically the nickname you once gave her, still echoes in your mind every time you need to remember who you really are. And I think, boy, that's the deepest kind of love. Not the kind that needs to own. Not the kind that needs to meet again. Just the kind that knows you were once real, once honest, once fully alive when you said her name in a way the world didn't have to understand. And if there's someone like that in your life, write it down. One word, one nickname only you understand. Jot it in your notes, write it behind a photo, or share it in the comments of this video if you're ready, not so anyone else gets it, but so you remember that you once felt something true, and that matters. We live in a time where emotions get brushed aside, where speed equals success. But I believe the things that move slow but are real are the ones that bring us back to who we are. So when you give someone a nickname, don't think it's just cute. It's how your soul signs its name on a memory. And sometimes it's the small things like that that keep you from getting completely lost in a world that moves too fast and feels too big. Have you ever had a favorite headache or a quiet north, or a muse who made you see life in deeper colors if you have, say, their name? Not to keep them, but to keep yourself connected to the version of you that once felt that alive. You know, all the nicknames I've shared in this series, favorite headache muse wildcard, anchor, shadow north. They're not just poetic words, they're emotional materials. Ways a man remembers a woman not with logic, but with a kind of deep, silent instinct only the heart understands. Not everyone will get it, but if you've ever loved someone with your attention, with your presence, with a kind of feeling you couldn't explain, you'll know a nickname when said at the right time can hold an entire person. I'm not telling these stories so you'll copy them. I'm sharing them so you'll remember. Remember that one time you looked at someone and thought, if I don't say something real now, I'll regret it. If there's a woman like that in your life, whether she's still beside you or lives only in a quiet corner of your memory, say her name the way you once called her. It doesn't need to be perfect. It doesn't have to be poetic. It just has to be true. Because sometimes what someone needs most isn't to be loved like in the movies, but to be seen, really seen through the eyes of someone who truly knew them. And if this video made you pause, even just for a second, to think of someone, a relationship, or a part of yourself you've forgotten, leave a comment below, because maybe your story might help someone else remember a piece of theirs. And if you want to keep walking this path with me, exploring unnamed emotions, understanding yourself better, and reconnecting with the moments that changed you, hit follow. We won't rush, we won't force it, we'll just tell stories, real ones, deep ones, the kind that stay. Thank you for staying with me till the end. I'm Fung, and I'll see you in the next video where we'll keep opening those quiet little doors inside the heart.